Hello everyone and welcome back to Days Out. And today I brought you to a museum that shows what life was like in the northeast of England. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Beamish Open Air Museum.
Beamish lies to the west of Chester Street on a 350-acre site, mainly focusing on life in the northeast at the turn of the century. Opened in 1972, the museum was the brainchild of Frank Atkinson, who acquired Beamish Hall in 1966 from the National Coal Board. Around the site is a 1.5 mile long tramway. The loop was completed in 1993, whilst the second route from the town to the colliery is used by motor buses. The trams are housed in a 4-row depot with an inspection pit on the 3rd row, whilst the bus depot meanwhile can house 8 vehicles. As well as buses, Beamish is also home to a number of veteran cars and vans, plus a replica of an Armstrong Whitworth car.
Number 114 was built for Newcastle tramways in 1901 and later sold to Sheffield in 1941, coming to Beamish in 1987. During her restoration, the chassis of an Oporto tram was used, but nevertheless she's the only one of her kind in preservation, being fitted with balconies but with an open top.
Gateshead number 10 dates from 1925 and was one of 17 sold to British Railways in 1951 for use on the Grimsby and Immingham. She was withdrawn in 1961. In service was Sunderland's number 16 from 1900. Originally fitted with an open top, she was rebuilt in 1922. Withdrawn in 1954 and preserved in 1989, the tram returned to service in 2003. Blackpool number 31 of 1901 was rebuilt twice in its service career in 1910 and 1920. Used on engineering duties from 1935, she came to Beamish in 1984. The final tram in service was Sheffield Corporation number 264 of 1907. Enclosed in 1926, she was withdrawn in 1937, coming to Beamish in 1973 and returning to service in 1975. The oldest building is Pockerley Hall. These halls were the homes of tenant farmers, with the produce from the terrace garden used for cooking. Farming became very popular in the Georgian era thanks to George III, nicknamed Farmer George. Many towns hosted a market on particular days, which livestock would have been driven to. For longer distances, drover taverns were erected to provide a respite.
Towns and villages, meanwhile, often had a small pottery, producing local ware such as these for domestic use as well as brick and tiles. All that, though, was about to change with the coming of the railways, which is why the North East is often referred to as the cradle of the railways. These started as a series of wagonways serving numerous collieries, culminating in the opening of the Stockton and Darlington Railway in 1825.
The Pockerley Wagonway opened in 2001, with the stock housed in the Great Shed, a replica of Hackworth's workshop at Shildon. Puffing Billy was designed by William Headley in 1814 for Wylam Colliery. Rebuilt in 1815 with 8 wheels, it was converted back in 1830. The original was withdrawn in 1862 and displayed in the Science Museum, with this replica being built in 2006. The purpose of the wagonways was to transport coal. Durham and Northumberland covered a huge mining area, with well-known collieries at Ashington, Heaton and Washington. All were run by private companies, with some mergers occurring later on. By nationalisation in 1947, there were 127 collieries in County Durham, the last two, Monk Wearmouth and Wearmouth, closing in 1994. Mining became a family tradition, and prior to the First World War, the North East had 165,246 miners across 304 pits. The drift mine at Beamish was sunk in 1855, running from Beamish Park Drift to Chop Hill Colliery.
The main feature of the colliery is the stone winding house. These were once a common sight in the northern coalfield, with this example coming from Cop Hill Colliery, and it's the only survivor of its kind.
Alongside the winding house is the Hempstead. This would have been used to raise and lower men and ponies into the pits, as well as removing the coal.
The ponies would have been used to haul the coal from the mines. Common breeds included Shetland, Welsh, Dartmoor and Cornish, and prior to the First World War there were 22,000 ponies in County Durham alone. For the workers, the coal mines provided properties. Francis Street was one of 27 houses which came from Heatonleigh Hole on Wearside. They were built in 1860 by the Heaton Coal Company and included, amongst other things, a communal bread oven and colliery pay office.
Education was also considered important in the Victorian era. The school at Beamish came from East Stanley and dates from 1892. Inside the colliery is the engine shed. Number 1 was built by Head Wrightson in 1871 for the Dorking Greystone Lime Company in Surrey. Her restoration included the construction of a new boiler before she returned to steam in 2010.
Fitted with 2-foot 5.5-inch wheels and 14-inch cylinders, locomotives of this type were affectionately known as coffee pots. A similar locomotive, number 17, of 1873, is also based at Beamish, which worked on the Londonderry Railway at Seaham Harbour. Another survivor from the Londonderry Railway is number 18, built by Stephen Lewin in 1877. Rebuilt in 1936, she was withdrawn in 1969 and came to Beamish in 1975.
The Londonderry Railway opened in 1873 at Seaham Harbour. It was founded by the 3rd Marquess of Londonderry, who owned several collieries. In 1900 it was sold to the North Eastern, with the locomotives going to the Seaham Harbour Dock Company Limited.
As well as coal mining, the North East is famous for another industry: shipbuilding. Roker was one of 9 crane tanks built for the Doxford and Son shipyard in Sunderland in 1940. Now the design is actually quite clever, as the elevation of the jib is controlled by the boiler pressure, whilst the jib itself has 3 hooks which eliminate the need for a winch.
Withdrawn in 1971, Roker is one of 4 crane tanks to survive from the Doxford shipyard. Moved to the Foxfield in 1974, she came to Beamish in 2016.
Edward Sholto was built in 1909 by Hunsler for Penwyn Quarry. She's known as a large due to the size of the water tank and was withdrawn in 1961 and sent to Canada, being repatriated in 2006. This rare locomotive is Malleebull number 5, built in 1873 by the South Durham Steel and Iron Company for the Malleebull Steelworks in Teesside.
The town at Beamish features several buildings which have been relocated, including the Cooperative from Anfield Plain, Ravensworth Terrace from Gateshead and the Sun Inn from Bishop Auckland.
Some towns would have their own stables, where horses and carriages could be hired out, a task undertaken by the job master. Some firms, however, specialised in multiple businesses. M.G. Armstrong was one of these, focusing on emigration and shipping, as well as being an auctioneer and estate agent.
The chemist from Stockton-on-Tees was earmarked by Frank Atkinson. During the Edwardian era, chemists would have sold everything, from herbs and soap to brushes. Behind the counter would have been colour-coded bottles, blue for syrup, clear for mixtures and green for poisons. In 1810, soda machines started to appear in the USA, eventually being copied by chemists in the UK using carbonic acid. This created an imitation spa water, with flavours being added later.
One early maker of soda drinks was Hiram of London in 1872. Now they came up with a very novel idea. What they'd do is they'd fill the drink into the bottle upside down and then seal it with a rubber ring and a marble. And to get the drink, what you do is you turn the bottle the right way up and hit the marble, which is where we get the phrase codswallop from.
Unlike today, sweet shops were promoted by the medical profession as they made medicine easier to take. Many shops were family run, with the sweets made in-house, but one family, Roundtrees, founded 2 factories in York and Newcastle. A later addition to the chemist was the photographer's studio. These became very popular during the First World War, with men having their picture taken in full dress uniform before going to the front.
Not far from the town is the railway station, which came from Rowley near Consett. It opened in 1867 and was one of the first buildings to be relocated to Beamish. It was reopened by Sir John Betjeman in 1976, and if anybody's interested, Sir John Betjeman is also the inspiration for my attire.
Other buildings on the station site are the signal box from Car House of 1896, the goods shed from Alnwick of 1850, the coal drops from West Bolden, and a coal office from Hexham.
A new addition to Beamish is a 1950s village, and one of the first buildings is this welfare hall. It's a replica of one found at Leasingthorne Colliery near Bishop Auckland. After the war, the government embarked itself on a massive housing rebuilding programme. This was often undertaken by councils, with the houses in this rather austere style. These examples are based on one found at Red House near Sunderland. Another thing that really took off after the war was cinemas. The Grand came from Ryhope near Sunderland, and as well as films would have also shown newsreels, one of the most famous broadcasters being Pathé. In the 1960s, Harold Wilson described Britain as being in the white heat of technology, and this is exactly what he had in mind. Out went the radio to be replaced by the television. The gramophone was replaced by the record player, the dolly by the washing machine, and the cold room by fridges and freezers. So that was our visit to Beamish Open Air Museum. Hope you've all enjoyed the video, and don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and feel free to follow me on Instagram. Link down below in the description. And coming up next week, I'll be taking you to somewhere that's home to one of the earliest railways in the UK, the Stephenson Steam Railway near Newcastle. So I hope you can join me for that one, and I'll see you all on the next day out. Bye for now.